dedicated to the only serious choice, the gospel of Jesus Christ in music and the spoken word. You're watching Light Switch Victory Television live with me, your host, Pastor J. Stan McCauley, inviting you to sit back and relax for the next 55 minutes or so as we continue our journey into the life-changing, life-giving, everlasting word of the Most High God. My friends, it is indeed time for the most important hour of the day, Bible study. Now, of course, it is my Bible study time that I spend with you. We try to do it each and every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday right here at accesstv.org, on Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and other social media as we broadcast live around the world from the greatest city on earth, Hartford, Connecticut, New England's rising star. How was your Thursday? I hope yours was as good as mine. It even was half as good as mine. Then you had a pretty good Thursday, all right? Yeah, I had a good day. I didn't really do too much today. That's not true. I was busy. I had a 2-hour meeting this morning. I had to get up early, take my children to camp. Such is life, right? Time for the big share. That's the portion of the program where we share the Bible study experience with friends and family right there. The big share. Camera's going crazy. What's wrong with the camera? It needs a tap. There we go. And by the way, that's why this camera is here. You see how it was like oscillating and jumping back and forth and everything, like it was losing his mind? Well, back when it was my main camera, it was doing that, and it's there. It is. It's happening right there, and it's hard to figure out why. And I think it's a software issue, but so we replaced it. It has a service life of about 3. I use a camera. Our main camera gets used every day, hours every day. And this camera, of course, still gets some use. But we can't be out in the field shooting with something like that. It just decides to go on by itself. It has something to do with the autofocus. You see, it's trying to hang. It's trying to find a center. It's trying to find a focal point, and it can't do it. More information than you need to know. That just technobabble. The big share cheat sheet. So let's get started so we can get to the open forum portion of our program. All right, let's refresh the page and get started. This is that portion of the program, by the way, where we share the Bible study experience with friends and family. Pamela, how you doing? And we're going to get started. All right, it's Open Forum Thursday. As such, what we do is we open up the phone line and we give you an opportunity to call in. But let me make sure that we say this once for everybody that's watching. So let's get started with the big share. We share with friends and family, and of course our foe. That way we can keep everybody in the know. All right. So our group shares are first. The first group we want to share with is where they do that at in the city of Hartford. Of course, that is Ashonda Barlow. Okay, and of course, we thank you for sharing and share the Bible study experience with friends and family. Okay, next we want to share with another group. That group would be Hartford Dwellers, the big, the bad, the bold. Hartford Dwellers. Next, we want to share with dwelling in downtown Hartford, Hartford's fastest growing community. There we go, dwelling in downtown Hartford. We have 2 pages, or groups, I should say, that we share with, and those groups are gospel groups. I mean, their whole group really focuses around gospel type discussions and conversations. And so that is Ministries of the Living God. That's the first one. And then the second one is New England Women and Men of God. All right. Group New England Women and Men of God. There we go. Next, we want to share with our own group, which is accesstv.org virtual TV network group. 2, 3, and one more. Forgot. Community block watches in the Northeast Clay Arsenal community. This is why we have the big share cheat sheet. Because I will jam this up. There we go. Community block watches, Clay Hill. Community block watches in Northeast and Clay Arsenal community group. Next, share with a couple of pages here. And the pages we want to share with, the first is accesstv.org. All right. Share. There we go. Next group we want to share with. Oops. Next page. Here we go. Let's get it together, Mr. McCauley. Connecticut Black News Network. Then we want to share with there we go. And let's see here. One more, well actually a couple more, just 3 more pages I think, and we'll be done. We have to share with Light Source Victory Television's Facebook page. There we go. Light Source Victory Television. And of course we want to share with McCauley for Hartford's Facebook page, because that being our political page, we share there once a week, and that we share because it's open forum Friday. And since we talk about politics and religion here, we want to give everybody an opportunity to weigh in with their questions, comments, criticisms, corrections, I said that, and remarks. Okay, next. I think that's it for the pages. Friends and family. Share with a family member. And one friend, and then we'll be all set for your phone calls. Greater Hartford Festival of Jazz, of course, is coming up. Won't be long now, next Friday. Next Friday. It doesn't seem possible, but next Friday is the 20th. And so everything starts next Friday. All right, so it's gonna be hopping and popping. Spyra Gyra will be on stage at this time next Friday, not tomorrow. Next week, Friday, and it'll be on. It will be on. They should be on stage at this time, I would say. I don't know what time they go on. Probably between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock they go on. So if they go on at 8, they'll probably be done by now. If they go on at 9, they'll be right in the thick of things. And then it's just if you like jazz, there's no place better to be than in Hartford, Connecticut next weekend. Of course, this Saturday is fireworks. So you got fireworks this weekend. Next weekend, it's musical fireworks, ear candy for the jazz. And then, of course, the Monday Night Jazz series kicks off. And I mean, it's just, Hartford is a place to be. What can I say? Hartford is the place to be. There's no doubt about it. All right. Phone number on the screen. Open forum, as I said. And there's the number 860-944-9797. Now, we do have people who watch the program on YouTube. There's people who watch the program on YouTube. There's people who watch the program on Facebook. You can get to YouTube from everywhere else we share. We share a multitude of social media networks. Okay, Google Plus, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, our own site, accesstv.org, on channel 10, on our main channel, and also on CTBNN. And so all of those entities really are watching YouTube. So YouTube is 60 seconds behind. All right, so if you're watching us on YouTube, what you're hearing happened a minute ago. So they're really, really behind. So if you're calling us, watching us on YouTube, you cannot listen to don't wait till, you won't hear us. You won't hear yourself talking when you watch for a whole minute. All right, so you can call in. Now, another thing that we need to acknowledge and realize is that for people who are on, for everybody watching, a lot of people are watching on their digital device, okay? On a phone, on some sort of other device, something, your phone impaired to your television. There's a lot of different ways people watch. But it's difficult to watch and call. Now, we've gotten people who have told us that when they try to call, they have a hard time finding the stream again. Okay, and I guess that would be very true if you're watching us on accesstv.org. If you're watching us on the network's website, when you go back, it takes you to the very beginning of the program. So when people log on accesstv.org, they always see the program from the start, not from the real-time present. Unless they tune in to accesstv.org and click on the live button. If you click on live, it'll take you to the real-time delivery of the stream, which is 60 seconds behind. I'm trying to make this as uncomplicated as I can. All right. You can instant message or leave your question in the comments. That way you don't have to leave your phone and you can watch. All right, so you don't have to call to participate. You can type your question up in the comments section on your phone. Okay? We don't read the comment stream from YouTube. I could. Let's see here. But that gets really let's see here. All right, so here's the comment section for YouTube. Or the chat section. I'll leave it up. Sometimes I I have them both open, but you know, you're sending video out and we're receiving video streams in, and it's unnecessary bandwidth to have a lot of open streams coming in as well as going out. And it really wouldn't make any difference if we had like 2 streams coming in, since we use Comcast, and there's only so much bandwidth on the system. Oh, well, we won't get into that. But nonetheless, is your time. 860-944-9797. The whole purpose of this program on Thursday is for you to have free reign to talk about whatever you want to talk about, to say whatever you want to say, to ask whatever questions you want to ask, to make any corrections to something that I said that was wrong, to ask for justification, rationalization of something that I said. It's one thing to sit around and talk. It's another thing to be able to, you know, explain why you said what you said or what you meant. A lot of times people will say stuff and then they don't even know what it is they said. So that's what this day of the week is for. All right. I have the privilege and the luxury and the good grace provided by you all in that you watch. Okay. At the end of the day, you are the ultimate controller, because you could always watch something else. You could always turn this off and watch something else. People jumping off of a roof into a wet sponge. Last night I was up late, as I am every night, but I was watching YouTube, and I was watching extreme mountain bike racing downhill. It was Red Bull. It was the qualifying round. It was an 18.5-minute run, and it was captivating. And the guy won. He was like middle to rear of the pack, and he had a Go camera on his helmet, and you got to watch the whole ride, and it was amazing. It was amazing. I'm down the side of a mountain, rocks, gravel. It was absolutely amazing. You know, you can't control your little bike, and you ride close to the edge, you're off the edge. This, you talk about action sport, you talk about extreme. Okay, you get real hurt real quick if you don't know what you're doing. And, you know, you're passing people. And so if you like auto racing or motorcycle racing or you know, it was incredible. It was incredible. And, of course, I had a million options of things I could watch. I could have watched Netflix. I could have watched Star Wars movies. I could have watched Black Mirror. There's all kinds of things I could watch, and I chose to watch that. You all have all the things you can watch. You're choosing to watch Lexus Victory Television. That's what I say. By grace, I am allowed to enter into your household, or more importantly than that, into your mind with this program. So I give you opportunity to call in and talk back. All right, because I can sit here and talk for 4 days out of the week, and there's no dialogue. It's not back and forth. It's one way. So this is your turn to do one way and ask me questions, or I will just let you talk. Okay, so 860-944-9797 is the phone number. It's open forum Thursday. I give you 1 hour. I'll stay here until 11 o'clock. That's the 1 hour. okay, or somewhere thereabouts. Right now, we're 20 minutes, 36 seconds into the program. I'll stay for 1 hour, and then after that, I'll probably leave. All right. I try my best not to come up with subject matter to talk about because I don't want to rant. At the same time, I can't just sit here and say nothing. But I'm content that nobody calls. Okay? I like when people call. But if no one calls, it's not a problem, because it means that all hearts and all minds are settled. If there's no questions, that means I either did an adequate job of explaining myself, I did an adequate job of explaining the message in the gospel, I did an adequate job of explaining some concept politically. Okay, so whatever it is that we're trying to communicate has left no questions. That is the ultimate when it comes to communication. If you can deliver the message and it is received, understood, and there are no questions, that's it. That's the best that you can ask for. All right. The affirmative response, or let me rephrase that. If the communication is a call to action, the communication was received and understood, and people choose not to respond, you've been successful. The call to action is a positive response to a call to action is not indicative of the ability to communicate to a person, because the person may have received the message and decided they didn't want to be involved. There's nothing wrong with that. The person didn't want to be involved. That means they say no. No is a legitimate option. Always. So you don't rob somebody of the opportunity to say no. Light Source Victory Television. Hello? Yes.
You live?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you're talking about something that I'm not seeing.
You're watching on YouTube?
YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, YouTube is 60 seconds behind.
Oh, okay. How are you?
I'm doing exceedingly, abundantly, totally, thoroughly well, my brother. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I was riding through town today, and I was on the bus. And when you could see human activity that was your past and know how good God has been, and you see a situation and go, be able by the grace of God go I.
Amen.
And it's like, I'm sort of like, with God's grace and His mercy, I have been so blessed and highly favored in the midst of my storm that I try to be a light for folks that are still stuck in the same situations. But I just come to the conclusion that whatever you go through, good or bad, when you know what it is, if it's bad and you go into it, you volunteer for it.
That is true. When we make negative choices, knowing the outcome of the choice, then we volunteer to deal with the consequences of those choices.
You got that right. I don't know, I just feel so free. And I've been by myself lately, but I can be alone and not lonely, as opposed to being in an environment of foolishness. Yeah, God has been too good.
Well, amen. You know, the Bible says be content in whatsoever state that we're in, but you said something that's actually very, very profound in that, you said something that's profound, and it caused me to think about this. A lot of people surround themselves with bad elements just for the sake of having some sort of human company. And it's not necessarily that they may want to be caught up with that, but that's the price they pay for the company of other human beings. And, you know, I think like gang membership enters into that, you know, people that get involved with criminal activity, people that get involved with underground activity and other human behavior. And it's not so much that people may love a particular thing, but that it's just they get caught up in it, and then next thing you know, it just becomes a way of life.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so sad. I think oftentimes we all need the nourishment of type, but you think that you have a type, and once the game gets going, you see that these are people that don't understand what the game is or how to play it. And it's like, I've been so blessed because I've been surrounded by an eclectic mix of human activity. And at my worst, I've had favor because folks will tell me, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. And I've hosted the President of the United States. I've thank God, never been in jail, not like that, but done some stuff that I should have been put under the jail for. And when you know what that stuff is, you stay away from it, and you can spook it at 20 paces. And God has been so good to me that, I think one of my biggest fears was that I thought I had caught the virus because so many people that I knew was dying from it. And God spared me. And it's been 1988 since I've had any risk factor. And like they say in AA and stuff like that, alcoholic doesn't return to the bottle. So if you've been blessed not to have caught that thing, that you stay away from that activity. You know? And I watch shows on TV now. It's like I get bored, but I go on YouTube and there's a bunch of different things. Some stuff I didn't go through, some stuff I can relate to, but I've learned to see it at a distance, and thank God that's not me. You know, that at my worst, I've been blessed and highly favored. And I don't know. I don't even know why I'm calling and telling you all this, but it's and you have been there for me in my darkest hours, and God is good. You know, He puts people in your life that when you need. You know, I've just been glad that I've been taught by the masters of whatever it is that it was, or I observed the people that did it well. But at the end of the day, no one gets surprised, and only what you do for Christ shall last. You know? And I don't know. I've just been really looking back over my life, and God has been good, you know? Sometimes I get lonely, but I call people and you're still doing the same old foolishness, $2 for rent and getting evicted. Come on. You know, you volunteer for that. On Amigo, you have from your house charging 50 cents. You know, it's just crazy. But He's brought me out of that. You know what I mean? And I've seen it, the highs and lows and all the in-betweens, you know? And if I don't know one thing, when God has an assignment for you to do, not only will He anoint you, but He'll appoint you, and He'll put the people in your life that can make whatever it is task that He has to come true. You know, everybody wants to be Michael Jackson, or they want to be Whitney Houston, but at the end of the day, what their lives were really like past the illusions.
Amen to that. That's very, very true.
Yeah. Well, I'm a not going to hold you long. I just, you know how I call you and I just need to talk and I've been running my mouth, so now I'm going to shut up and listen.
Well, God bless you.
God bless you too, Stan.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Amen. All right, 860-944-9797 is our phone number. It's open forum. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. In the old days, we'd be here until like 3 o'clock in the morning. And folks would call. And all kinds of people would call with all kinds of issues. Some great, some bad, successes, failures. You know, life is a very interesting thing. And I try to explain life in this term. It's like riding a wave, okay? Like surfing. And people who surf are always looking for that great wave and will travel all over the world to find it. And, you know, you get in the cut or in that, you know, in the curl of the wave, and you just on this, like riding this board, you're gliding down the wave. As the wave rolls, you find that sweet spot. You just roll with the flow, go with the flow, and you maintain your balance, and you ride it as long as you can. Eventually, the wave is going to collapse. There are all kinds of things that cause the wave to collapse. As it gets closer to shore, eventually the wave is going to give out. And in life, you get limited opportunities to ride that wave. But whatever wave you're on, give it your best shot. All right? So for some people, the wave might be the fame and fortune of a big stage, like for somebody like Michael Jackson. And only he can ride that wave. Only he can be on that board at that time, in that space, in that place. No one else. Now, you may admire what he does there. He may get the attention of a whole lot of people while he is there. But what it took him to get there is unique to him. And so, you know, do you really want to live the life of Michael Jackson? Do you really want to live the life of the Kardashians? Do you really want to live the life of Donald Trump? Do you really want to live the life of, you know, pick a person. All right, I think Trump's a really good example because back when The Apprentice was the hottest show on the planet and everybody admired Donald Trump and, you know, money, 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 their song would come on. And just everybody wanted to be associated with him. But now there are people who distance themselves, don't want anything to do with him. There are a lot of people who like him. Not here in Connecticut, but in other parts of the country, Donald Trump's the hottest thing since sliced bread. There are people who folks hate universally. Evil people, Adolf Hitler, who took their moment in the sun and did great harm to humanity. What you do with your moment is unique to you, and only you can do it. Only you. Never wish to be somebody else, because you are a unique individual that God chose and set upon whatever wave you're on. And while waves that surfers ride collapse, your wave is a little longer. You start that wave when you're born, and when you give up that last breath, that's when the wave expires. All right? There's a friend of mine who I know who is in convalescent home. And they're convalescing from surgery. And they're up in age. But they're not content to just sit in a nursing home and just be. All right? So he goes to meetings. He's convalescent, but he goes to meetings. You get the dial-a ride. Oh, he's traveling here and there. He's making plans. He's doing all kinds of stuff. He's not as mobile as he once was, but as long as he can get around, he chooses to get around. See, what you make with your situation is in your control. All right? It's in your control. Totally in your control. I remember a couple years back, there was an incident that happened here in Hartford. It involved notable people, but I won't mention their names. There's a phrase that folks use, victim of the lifestyle. Oftentimes associated with criminal or underground type activity, people involved in the drug world are involved in prostitution or live in an underground lifestyle. There's a whole sector of human activity that happens here in Hartford, Connecticut, that most people are either totally unaware of, willfully ignorant of. But if you go out at night, like I do, you see all kinds of activity. All kinds of activity. There's a whole homeless population. There's people out in Hartford now who are a transient. Tonight is a beautiful night. Okay. And there's areas of the city where folk congregate because they just don't have a place to stay. They have no place to live. They don't have a job. They're not out in Marlborough. They're not out in Manchester or Farmington. Okay. So a lot of people come into Hartford. If you go up by Walmart over toward the West Hartford line, as you're going down toward, you're in West Hartford at that point, over by Home Depot. There's people panhandling on the street. I don't mean this in any kind of disparaging way. But, if you come into Hartford, you quite likely see a lot of black folk panhandling. If you go out there, you see white folks panhandling. Now, you go out to Bishop's Corner out there by, what's out there? Whole Foods, Simon Conover building. The guy out there panhandling, playing classical violin with his kids on a Sunday. Times are rough, all right? Times are rough. And people do what it is that they have to do to survive. Because at the end of the day, everybody is human. Everybody is human. So, the defining moment in the lives of human beings are how they choose to help somebody else. Because the world is really classified into two categories. T.C. Pettaway was here. He was a guest on Jonathan's program, Jonathan Small, the host and producer of All About You, as well as another program, Face to Face. And he's had all kinds of people over the years here, and one of them was T.C. Pettaway. Now, T.C. Pettaway's passed on and gone on to be in glory. But one of the things that T.C. said, as Jonathan was asking him about church folk, he says there's only two kinds of people. Two kinds of people. Whether they're in church or not is irrelevant. There's two kinds of people. Givers and takers. That's it. Everybody on the planet you line up to the right or to the left. There's two types of people. Givers and takers. Church folk. Every single church, I don't care how mighty and large, I don't care how established and the legacy of the church, I don't care whether they have an endowment or whether they utilize the poor parishioners that are on food stamp to, raise $30,000 to send their pastor on a nice vacation for his anniversary. I've been to churches. I've preached at little storefront churches. Okay, I've been to little storefront churches to preach, where the congregation fried chicken, sold popsicles, and whatever else they had to do to raise enough money to send their pastor on vacation. And when I say vacation, I mean real vacation. So they give him a check and checks in cash totaling like $30,000. 30 grand. That doesn't make any sense to me. I see no justification for such action. But I was invited to come there and preach. And so if I'm invited to come anywhere and give the, talk about the saving grace of God and Jesus, I'm obligated to do so and will as best I can. I'm not in the business of judging people and their motives. I can observe a thing, though. Okay? So you might have a church whose members tithe $30,000 a year and consider that an accounting error. Then you have other churches where people raise collectively $30,000 for their pastor to go on vacation, in addition to the salary they give him every week. And they are trying to find where they're going to get rent. In both of those church scenarios, there are givers and takers. That's it. Most people are takers. I'd say anywhere from 70 to 90% are takers. On the high end, you might have 30% givers. Okay? Most people in churches are there to get something. There's nothing wrong with that. But the givers are few and far between. If you want to be a standout individual, be a person that gives. There is nothing greater that you can do than to give. And the greatest thing you can give is not your money. The greatest thing you can give is your time. Philanthropy is often thought of as strictly a monetary communication. You communicate money, you give them money. But the greatest thing that you can give as it relates to philanthropy is of your time. You give of your time, of your substance, of your worth. Okay? Because time is the greatest currency you have. You can go out and earn money. If it ain't matter, you could go out and steal money. But you can't steal time. You can't steal time. To every human being, there is given a measure of time. A measure. That's why you see behind me an hourglass. All right. And I have on my keychain, I don't have it with me, but I have on my keychain an hourglass. I think it's 7 seconds. Okay. Because this is the most important, this right here, this is the greatest currency you'll ever have. Time. This is it right here, time. And you have to spend it wisely. Each grain of sand that passes through the neck of this hourglass, once it passes through, that's it. And that's how your life is. Your life has so many grains of sand. And when the last sand falls, then you have to give an account for what you did during that life. All right? So if you really want to be a person of character, give. Give. There's no greater thing that you can do than to give. Public service. As much as we get on people who are elected to office, politicians, things along that line, it takes a great amount of self-sacrifice to serve in political office. There's more people out there talking about what you don't do than will ever talk about what you do. Because critics are always present. There's always a critic in the room, always. And so people give of their service. Right? People enter into public service because they want to do something to help other people. So they give of their time. All right? Now, the system for most people is not what they thought it was going to be when they entered into it. That's something that they find out along the way. And, are people corrupted by the system? There are many who believe that it is inevitable. I don't think that it is inevitable. All right. It takes a strong force of will and character to not be corrupted by the system. But the system will only corrupt you if you allow yourself to be corrupted by the system. All right. You may not be able to move things forward because you take a particular stand. All right. People have internal conflicts, all these other kinds of things. We're not going to get into all that philosophical and all that stuff. The point is, give. Whether it's public service, whether it's volunteering somewhere, whether it's helping somebody, some young person learn how to read or get better at a particular craft or trade. Okay. How can you help humanity? I was at the gas station earlier, putting air in my tire. Sometimes I like to get a nap before I come on the air, so at least I'll be rational with my thoughts. And I thought, it's 8:30. Let me set up. Well, actually, it was like 8 o'clock. Let me set everything up in case I fall asleep. That way, if I wake up, I won't have an emergency on my hands. All right, so by the time I got everything all set up, it's 8:45. Now, I could get a good hour of sleep, a nap, power nap. But, there's a situation right now where half these, gas stations will be shut down at 11:30. And so, I don't know which ones, I don't know if the one next to Burger King, next to, across from CVS, next to, McDonald's on Washington Street, across the street from the old Washington Diner where a lot of political happenings went on. It used to be the Washington Diner and used to be Hal's as well as some other places, but the Washington Diner was a legendary place. There's a gas station across the street from there where I go get air in my tire because despite my greatest attempt, it constantly loses air, the two back tires. I don't know why. I've taken them to the guy. He, put a patch in there. I don't know whether it's leaking through the rim. Maybe the rim is cracked. I don't know. But it always seems that the air leaks out of there. And even if the tires are new. So, you get air in the tire. You have to put air in the tire just like you got to put gas in the car. So I've gotten used to going and putting air in my tires. And, that gas station has the best air nozzle. It used to not have the best air nozzle. So I was at the gas station once, and a guy comes up to me, and he looked like he was, panhandler. And I was trying to put the air in the tire, and I was having a lot of trouble. So the guy came up to me, and first thing I'm thinking is, he's going to ask me for some money. So he comes up, he says, I see you're having trouble, but look, I'm not asking you for no money. Let me check. So he took his, he had a shirt, a T-shirt like this, and he takes the bottom of the T-shirt and put the air nozzle like this around the T-shirt, right? And press it up against the air tube. And that made a nice solid seal, and he pumped the tire up. I said, well, here, let me give you. He said, no. You needed some help, so I came over to help you, brother. I didn't, like I told you, I didn't do that for the money. You be blessed. And he walked on. All right? Now, he did me, so that's that's philanthropy. That's being philanthropic. Okay? Little deeds like that. Little deeds. I went there today to get air. That's where I go get air. I've been getting air there for a long time. All right. So like yesterday's little rant about them shutting down these things, that's not shtick. And it's not put on. I am impacted by that decision. So in decision impact me. I'm not happy about shutting down places that people need to use. And I most certainly am not happy about prejudging human activity before it happens based on what happened before. Give folk opportunity to fail. Don't fail them automatically by default. That's just a pet peeve of mine, that free speech. There's a couple of pet peeve things that set me off. There are not a lot of them, but there are a couple of them. All right, incompetence, insubordination, those are two things that set me off. Those two things that set me off. I went there tonight. Brother came up to me. He was asking for money, but it was not a problem. I didn't have a problem. And I says, well, I don't have a lot of money, but I will give you what change I had. And I had a pocket full of change, quarters, all kinds of stuff. So I gave him all of the change in the pocket. But when I said to him, I don't have much, but I'll give you what I had, he opened up his hand. He said, well, the last guy gave me a quarter. At first, I thought he was joking with me. I said, come on. But he said, then he told me that he thought the guy that gave him the quarter was joking with him. All right. But he said the guy said that's all he had. So he was thankful for it, he said. And so with that in mind, I say this. If you set out your house every day with $2 in quarters, you could give a quarter to 8 different people. And you can be a blessing to somebody. Doesn't take a lot of money. It takes the attitude of the heart in the giving. When you give that way, then you will be blessed. Because God returns to people what they sow. It's a principle of life. It works with people. It works with groups. It works with families. It works with towns, cities, and nations. A nation that gives will be blessed. A town that gives will be blessed. You reap what you sow. That's why there are certain principles that are necessary in order for there to be prosperity in a land or in a city or anywhere else. And when those principles are not employed or applied, the city is cursed. It can't get out of its own way. Okay? So you reap what you sow. These are universal principles. All right? For those of you who have trouble wrapping your head around the idea or the notion of the divine, okay, or of a sense of God or what God is, these are universal laws. Universal laws. Before I came on the air, I always do a security check, right? Because, security is no accident. Everybody is personally responsible for their own security. Okay? Everybody is personally responsible for their own security. So before I come on the air, I always check the doors in the house. All right? before we, but that's a general rule, because of course we broadcast live programs from the studio every day, several times a day. So once I'm in the studio, I don't want somebody coming in and walking around the house. I wouldn't even hear that they were in the house. Right? So I have security where I could see who's coming to the door. All right? But I could always look away from the screen or something and look back up, and I wouldn't have seen that someone walked up and came in. So I go and I check, because sometimes a guest might run out at the last minute to get something out of their car, like to come out of the studio, go use the bathroom, and say, oh, you know what, let me go get that thing out the car real quick. They run out, come back in, and maybe they didn't push the door closed. Well, that's not the guest's fault, particularly if I know that that's a highly likely thing to happen. So I go and I double check. I do the same thing even when I'm the person that's going on the air. All right? So I double check the doors. Now, I went to double check the door tonight. It was at that time around about 9:10. 9:50, it was just about, I think I just came back from the gas station at that point. I went and checked the doors. Yeah, it was, because I just got back, so it was just shortly before 9. Across the street from the little housing complex, 2 raccoons. About the size of a small dog. 2 walking together. They're hobbling along. 1 raccoon, another raccoon. And they got to the end of the driveway where the sidewalk was. The one looked up the street, the one looked up the sidewalk, down the sidewalk. Then they moseyed across under the car. The next one came from behind them. And then they kind of split up. So one was in front of the car, the other one was behind the car, and now they're looking up and down the street. So the one ventures out and it stops and it looks around to see if the other one's coming. The other one started coming, then he went. All right. The one came up right through the front fence. Then another one came up the driveway. The other one cut across the little gravel, little stones in front of the house, went in the driveway. So I walked to the back of the house. Sure enough, there they go, walking through the back of the house, through the back driveway, and on their little business. Now, I didn't have the opportunity to run up and check the gender, but it seemed to me that one was a male and the other one was a female. And so here's this couple going about their little raccoon business, right? Male and female, together, companionship, all right? Universal law. All right? The companionship of type. They could have been 2 females or 2 males for all I know, but they was both raccoons. Right? And so looking out for each other. Taking care of each other. If you take care of one another, you'll be blessed. If you bite and devour, you're cursed. Universal laws. See, some things aren't all deep and spiritual. Some things just are. All right? Universal law. Universal law. Reaping and sowing is a universal law. You reap what you sow. If you sow negativity, you will reap negativity. Sowing negativity is different from seeing a thing that is negative and pointing it out or fixing it. You cannot make an assessment that something is not right. All right? Without an understanding that there is a negative factor. There's the old saying, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, don't mess around with Mr. In Between. Well, I mean, that's all well and good, but if you live that kind of lifestyle, the things that are negative would just get ejected and thrown away. That's not always a luxury. I mean, it's a luxury when it comes to bad meat. Get rid of it. If it's kind of shaky, don't eat it. All right? But you can't have that attitude when it comes to people. Because like we were talking about yesterday, just because a person isn't where you think they should be doesn't mean they won't be there tomorrow. Because everybody that's where they think they should be wasn't always there. So just like you had your opportunity to get where you are, others need opportunity to get to where you think they should be. It shouldn't be disposed of, folk in the way. All right? It's like the Native Americans. Chief Elke was here the other day with James Amon. The former Speaker of the House, Jim Amon, the chairman of our exploratory committee. As I explore the opportunity or the process, I explore the possibilities for running for mayor. Speaker Amon is the chairman of that committee. Reaffirmed his support and said, when you make your announcement, I will stand behind you. As well as a couple other people. But he was here 2 days ago. You can watch the program where he interviewed Chief Valky. Of the Chattahoochee tribal nation here in Connecticut, they were like, just totally misused by, ultimately, the state of Connecticut took their land. Okay. Now, here's Native people. They were here. Okay. So when people came to Connecticut and created what we now see, there were already people here. Indigenous folk. All right. Now, you could go into some long-winded diatribe about how they must have got here from someplace else. Maybe that's fair. But they were definitely here when the folk that took over came. So, indigenous. Alexa, what is the definition of indigenous?
Indigenous is usually defined as originating where it is found.
Originating where it is found. All right. Now, like I said on yesterday's program, I don't mince words, and I don't, if I'm going to talk about a person, I'll mention them by name. Okay. I don't use coded language to talk about people. Oh, he must be talking about, if I'm ever talking about you, you'll know. The Bronins, Sarah and Luke, the mayor and first lady of Hartford, are not originally from here. Alexa, repeat that.
I can't repeat anything playing on TuneIn Live.
Okay. Alexa, what is the definition of indigenous?
Indigenous is usually defined as originating where it is found.
Originating where it is found. They don't originate from where they are found. I'm not being mean. I'm making a point. We use politics and news of the day to help you understand things. That's what we do here for the last 35 years. It's nothing new. All right. I remember when Henrietta Millward backstabbed Carrie Saxon Perry, and I talked about her. She called me up and she said, I heard that you said someone said that you were talking bad about me and using my name in a bad way on your television program. I said, that's not true. I said, you were a liar. I'm not talking bad about you. What I said was that you were a liar. This is not new. I've been this way for a long time. Okay, so the Bronins are found here, but they didn't originate. I didn't originate from here. I've been here a longer than they have, and I've been here a long time, but I didn't originate from here. A lot of people didn't originate from Hartford. Now, some old families may have been here for a long time, but they didn't predate the native people of this land. Truth be told, if the Native Americans really were to, if right was to be done by them, all of us would have to leave. Your house is on their land. So, you know, people arrive on the shores of a place and there are people there. The people that are there when you arrive are the indigenous people. And colonizers, Alexa, what is a colonizer?
Colonize is usually defined as settle as a colony of countries in the developing world.
To settle as a colony. All right, so Thomas Hooker, all right, the Reverend Thomas Hooker, came to Hartford and he founded Hartford. He set up a colony. All right, there's all this open space and trees. I mean, ain't nobody up here doing nothing. Maybe we may as well set up a little colony. Okay, so we do that all over the world. People want to go into space. Elon Musk wants to go into space and colonize other worlds, other planets. Let's colonize the moon. All right. If you believe the Coast to Coast late night crowd, you see, I'm up late. I've been listening to Coast to Coast for decades. Okay. Back before George and Nori. All right. So, you listen to some of those folk up there. We were told don't come back to the moon. You can get that deep, right? Why haven't we been back to the moon? We never went to the moon. I mean, you hear some of these people like just totally. They're out there. Let's put it that way. All right. You want to go colonize the moon. You want to go colonize Mars. Maybe we're a colony of, maybe we're really Martians. Maybe we started out on Mars and we left Mars because of the atmosphere collapsing and we colonized the Earth. Right? Maybe, maybe not. But one thing's for certain. They colonized the Americas. And the people who were here, the indigenous people, they were in the way. So what do you do? Exterminate them. Germ warfare. Made them sick, moved them off. All right. If they didn't make them sick, they got sick. The presence of foreign agents, germs, and disease caused sickness among the indigenous people. Whether on purpose or not, the end result is the same. Most certainly, as treaties were made and broken, those weren't accidental. Givers, takers. If it is the intent to come and help anyone we see, then our success is their success and all success is shared success. If we come in to take what we can, then our success is at your expense. So our success is your deficit. So we transfer whatever wealth you have, whatever resources you have, to the taker. And then the taker does very well until there's nothing left here, like a virus, right? A virus takes everything it can take from its host, and then at the end, it dispenses the host and moves on to a next thing. Dangerous viruses kill human beings. They come on, they use up the human being. The virus lives off of them as long as they can until there's nothing left. All right. Little matrix there, little matrix theology, right? Okay. Humanity is a virus. There's a lot of people who actually believe humanity is a virus that needs to be exterminated off the face of the earth. The earth would be better without human beings. Now, of course, that is not scriptural because God saw fit to put human beings here and to place them in a highest order so that man could be a steward over God's creation. But then he decided to put his own will ahead of God's will and sinned. And now the rest is history. All right? But givers give. Everyone that's a giver always sets up the dynamics and the parameters for mutually beneficial coexistence. It's purposeful. Givers are purposeful in their giving. Takers are purposeful in their taking. They take. Alexa, what is a pimp?
A person who controls prostitutes and arranges clients for them, taking part of their earnings in return.
Okay, so we have some pimps down on Wethersfield Avenue. Now, the Reverend Henry Price, who became the poster child for redemption, he'd been interviewed on this network twice. He's back in jail for pimping again. He was here. He pleaded guilty to pimping. The word was, and this is a subject that had come up about 20, maybe 25, maybe 30 years ago, and I got a call one night when I was getting ready to talk about it on a live program just like this. It was a little later than now. It was probably about 12 o'clock, 12:30, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. And the person said, you probably would be better off not going into the subject. There's more to it than you realize. So I backed off the subject. That was 20 years ago. And so the scuttlebutt. Now, I'll tell you, this is scuttlebutt. I have no proof. I have testimony, which winds up nothing more than hearsay. So I can't mention any names other than Henry Brown, or Reverend Henry. Not Henry, our Henry from, not that Henry. Henry Price, not Henry Brown, all right? Reverend Henry Price, all right? Former co-host of Expose. The word was, the scuttlebutt was, he was arranging hookups for preachers here in Hartford. So lots of people had a vested interest to make sure Henry kept his mouth shut. Now, the pimp is a taker. Straight out, no other way to put it. That's what pimps do. They take. Taker. Some preachers at church is a taker. A lot of preachers at church have not an ounce of giving in them. They see opportunity and they seize it. That's that taking. All right? Now, a lot of times there's an opportunity to prosper, to take. But with every opportunity to take, there's the opportunity to give. Good evening, Charles. Right? So there's the opportunity to give. Takers, givers. Two kinds of people. Most people are takers. All right? So the pimp running the young women and men on Wethersfield Avenue is there to exploit human beings by putting them out on the street for sexual gratification of other takers. And then when the compensation for the use thereof of that individual's body, then they come and they take the money. Now, as the caller said earlier in the program, sometimes people get caught up in lifestyles that are horrible. It's not necessarily that there's something that they want to be involved with. Speaker Amon was very instrumental in getting legislation passed that made it possible for young ladies who are caught up in human trafficking to not be stigmatized as criminals, but rather as victims, because many cases they are. And one of the biggest prostitution rings in the country was run right here in Connecticut on the Berlin Turnpike. There's a whole series around that subject on this network. That Speaker Amon did. So when the young ladies are picked up in a raid, to a certain degree, there's a lot of victimization that then is, the victim is re-victimized. But the guy who's running them, or the woman, right? Because not all pimps are men. Some pimp, you can't really refer to them as a madam because it's a woman. A madam is a different type of operation, generally in a house. All right. A lot of young girls here in Hartford are not working at McDonald's or Burger King because they're servicing a lot of older guys here in the city. Young women attending schools here in Hartford, tricking to earn extra money from some men who clearly, should these young ladies decide to do a #MeToo moment, would be in a lot of trouble. Oh, there's a whole side of Hartford y'all have no idea even exists. So you need to understand the dynamics that create the foundation for some of the issues that keep Hartford as the fourth poorest city of its size in the country, smack dab in the middle of the 10th wealthiest region in the world. Givers, takers. Takers could care less about the plight of those from whom they take. That is the characteristic, it is the nature of the taker. I say that without fear of contradiction. That's what takers do. They take. Very rarely do you see the Johns. The Johns are arrested. If it was up to me, if I was in charge, I would find some way to get legislation passed. You know, I know the ACLU is out there and all the civil liberties, this, that, and the third. Makes no difference. Where there's a will, there's always a way. You get caught soliciting sexual favors in the city of Hartford, we put you on the electronic billboards on the highway. It's not going to cost the city anything. Why? because the city could do all kinds of tax abatements and this, that, and the third for everybody and their mother's uncle. We'll give you a tax abatement. In fact, what we might do is the permit or whatever it is, it lets you use the space and a third. Consider it charity work, if you will. All right. But the pictures is going up on there. So whatever we have to do in order to pass whatever legislation is necessary, even if there's, some people in the judicial department or in the executive department or we won't call them departments, the executive branch, the judicial branch, or the legislative branch, who might have a little problem dipping here and there, a little bit of, human flesh for their little appetite, don't get in the way. Just stop. Right? And so we've passed whatever legislation. I don't know what the hindrance. There's always opposition. Understand that. Always. You want to run an engine? The engine needs the explosive power of the combustion to push the piston down, to turn the crankshaft, to turn that explosive energy into torque, which moves the wheels of your car so that you can travel along the land. Okay? But there's friction. There's friction with the wheels. There's friction with the parts turning. There's friction in the cylinder. So we add oil. You overcome whatever it is that causes the opposing force. There's always opposing force. Every project you start off, understand there's opposition. I like to factor opposition into everything that I do. What is the opposition? What is the likelihood of us failing? I never enter into anything with the likelihood of victory. Victory is what remains after every obstacle is removed. All right? Victory is what remains once the obstacles have been removed. So how do we remove the obstacles and in doing so become givers and not takers? See, the universal laws don't change because of the mission. You don't get corrupted because of the mission. You only get corrupted if you're corruptible. Corruption comes because individuals are corruptible. Okay? So you have to find something within or put something from without within that gives you the strength of character to no longer be corruptible so that you become incorruptible. The corruptible puts on incorruptible, and you no longer are subject to the things that cause corruption. And you understand and learn the power of the word no. 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 Mm-mm. No. No. Okay? That's one of the signs of being grown, when you can tell your parents no and not feel remorse or feel bad or go on a guilt trip. No. Mm-mm. And you're not being disrespectful. You're mature enough so you can say no to your parents. And a lot of people can't say no. It's a very powerful word. No. All right? So there's always opposition. There will be opposition to putting the faces of people who solicit prostitutes on billboards. Because they don't want anyone knowing that they was picked up for prostitution. Well, you can't do that because they're innocent until proven guilty, Well, what's the workaround? Dash cam video. All right? So we find a way to make the legislation say video used in sting operation for, and there's going to be opposition that work around it. That's how I would handle the situation if I was the mayor. And I already have my pick for legislative liaison. He's a bad dude. He can handle it. Find a way to get, and it's not Jimmy Amen, find a way to get legislation crafted and worded that gives us the power to put people who exploit other human beings for their sexual gratification on billboards in this city. In the meantime, I want on that billboard language that says, if you get caught soliciting prostitution in Hartford, your picture will be here. Let's put that up there. We'll just work with the city council to find legislation to do something about it. See, to me, this is working for the good of the people that live here and dealing with the real life situations and problems that live here. Okay? If you were over the age of 18 and you were caught soliciting sexual favor, if you're caught paying for sexual favor from a person that attends a Hartford public school, I will find a way to throw whatever I can at you, up to and including, if possible, castration. I mean, that's where I would go with that. Get me something that I can use. Find something. Now, these are not edicts from on high because we live in a dictatorial democracy. We live in a representative republic, right? So legislation has to be passed. I'm suggesting that there needs to be a change in priorities and things that we value. Because the young people understand what their value is if folk know about this stuff and nothing's being done. It is not enough for kids to be working by the riverfront, picking up paper to give them something to do. Young people do best when they work someplace for their money, not when they get a stipend for showing up. Because the stipend usually is what's left over after everyone else in the program that's an adult gets a sizable check. Kids know that. You don't think the young people know that? So the adult and the program managers all get big time checks, and the kid get $1 stipend an hour. So at the end of a 25-hour program, he gets a $50 gift card. Real talk. So he's getting a $50 gift card at the end of the program. He did 25 hours in the week. Now, I don't know about you, but simple math. Alexa, what time is it?
The time is 11:33 p.m.
All right. I just like the drama of asking her. I sound like somebody old. That's how old people talk. Baby, Lexa, what time it is, girl?
It's 11:33 p.m.
See, she's very adaptable. She's been listening to folk all over the world. So when you ask her questions, now she knows what you're talking about. What time it is, girl? And she answered me, right? Artificial intelligence. It learns a lot quicker than human beings. Alexa, what is 25 times 2?
25 multiplied by 2 equals 50.
50. How about that? $50 a week. So you get a $50 stipend gift card. Now, the kid is doing this because, one, they come from the fourth poorest city in America, right? A world apart. Fourth poorest city of a city of size in the United States, which is in the 10th richest region of the world. Now, I don't have a problem with the wealth disparity. What I have a problem with is the lack of giving attitude from those who have said wealth. Because you're always going to have the poor. The poor are always going to be around. The greatest gift the poor give is opportunity for those that have to become better people by genuinely giving, not out of pity, but because there's a desire to make life better for someone else besides yourself. That's the greatest gift. All right? The poor are going to inherit the earth. Understand that. All right? The rich prosper but for a moment, like a flower that grows up in the sun, the blade of grass, and then the next thing you know, dead, wilted, withered, gone. That's how it is with money, wealth. Wealth is the difference between what you make and what you spend. And those that chase after it soon wind up without it. Okay? Because unless you could take every dime you have, I've been saying this is not something diatribe new. I've been saying this since I got on the air. For the last 35 years, I've been saying this. All right? Until you could take every dime you have, set it on fire, and walk away with as much power as you had before you set the money on fire, you don't have any money. Like it, lump it, leave it. The President of the United States has done that twice. Every time he gets up out of the dust of the money that he had that caught fire, he winds up more powerful. Where does he get his power from? Well, that's a subject for another day and another time and another space. The name of the game is power, not money. Money. People get caught up in money. Like money is a tool. That's all it is. It's all it's ever been. It's a tool. You deify money, you're in a long slide downhill toward doom. All right? The real currency isn't in money. The real currency is what? We talked about it. The real currency is time. All right? Time is not a tangible. So the currency, the means of trade, is your ability to give. As you sow, so shall you reap. Sowing and reaping. The more you sow, the more you reap. Real currency comes from your ability to give. Because the more you give, the more there is for you to reap. Particularly if you give and don't reap. If you give more than you reap, then what you have is the balance is what's referred to as wealth. The Bible says, owe no man but to love him. That's the only thing you should owe is love. Love is the greatest gift that you can give. The Bible says, no greater love that a man have than to give his life for his friend. Jesus gave the greatest gift. That's the attitude that the Christian has to have. It's not one you feign or put on or fake. It's what you have. If you really saved, that's what separates you. Not your ability to speak in tongues, not your ability to keep a Sabbath day, your ability to give. Because that's what God did. The nature of God is to give. God gives. God speaks, and a thing becomes a thing. The very nature of God, the essence of God, is to create life. And the life he creates is eternal. And then the eternal life that he gave to Adam somehow got contaminated and flawed and fractured and broken. And God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, to restore the broken Adam. Giving. With all the poverty we have here in Hartford, kids understand the value of $50. A lot of them work they work a whole week. Their little $25, then they take the gift card and go home and give it to their mom. This is not something somebody told me. I've been playing undercover cop for about the last 8 years. I've been in organizations. I've been in nonprofit organizations. I've been in the ones that work well. I've been in the ones that don't work well. I've been in the ones where the executive directors are good. I've been in the ones where the executive directors are bad. I've been taking notes. I've been watching. I've been observing. I see who's real, who's not real. I know who can be trusted and who can't be trusted. I know the ones that lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, and the ones that give out of a pure heart. Observation. I know the ones who were one way, it wasn't such a great way, who have repented and turned and become some of the greatest people you'd ever want to meet. Kids see that on a first-hand basis. So you talk about what kids need, and then kids see what they get. It's like the folk in the big house are having quail. But the people that fix the quail are lucky if they get to eat the feet of the pig. And then down in their little church, by the cool running water of the spring, they're lucky to get a ham this summer. Or this Christmas. You know they're going to give us a ham this Christmas. I think I'm going to keep that ham for myself. The other folk get a good, we going to do good this year. They're going to give us a ham. When you're high on the hog. All right, that's what this stuff. Kids understand. That's my point. So, what do you do to fix that? Kids don't need the appearance of work. They need real work. Real work. Not the semblance of work. Fake work, like fake news. So we get a government-sponsored program that pays a stipend to the kid so that they have a quote-unquote summer job that really isn't a job. Because kids are not stupid. They know the difference between a job and a stipend. So you show up late on a job, guess what happens? You get docked your pay or you get fired. Sometimes getting fired on your first job is the greatest learning experience you could ever have because you understand real quick what it means to come to work on time. You don't show up for your little summer government job, and what happens? You told now you can lose your stipend if you're going to keep this up. The real work world doesn't work like that. How come you didn't come in? Well, I was running late, so it didn't make no sense to come all the way in here. By the time I get on the bus and come down here and everything, then I'm only going to be here for like 20 minutes. And so I just figure I would come in the next day. So that's why I didn't come in yesterday. Look, if you can't come in, you need to call. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble, all right? I'm going to have to dock you or something like that. But don't worry about it. In the real work world, no, that's not how it works. They don't know that. The kids understand that if 10 kids out of the 30 get docked from the program not going to get paid. So the kid is necessary in order for the program to get paid. You don't think the kid understands that? They're not dumb. So it becomes a big illusion for all parties involved. And who suffers? Everybody. The workaround is real work, real jobs, which means how do we get real companies into Harvard with a focus and a desire to hire kids in an age where technology is replacing everybody. You have to be creative and think out of the box. How do you get creative and think out of the box? By making the children getting a job matter. Not something that keeps them out of the city so that folk that want to come into the city where a lot of money's been invested feel safe. A real job. Not busy work. A real job. Every adult knows the difference between substantive work and busy work. And people who really like to be productive and see something as a result of their effort hate busy work. Look, if you don't have any real work for me and it's just going to be busy work, I could go home and you don't have to pay me. I'll find something else to do with my time. Because I'm going to sit here and pick safety wire up out of the block floor here at Pratt Whitney. I told my boss that once. I said, can I go home? He said, no, you can't go home. I was 19. I said, I don't understand why I'm in here. It's Saturday and there's no work. The guys from the production line are picking safety wire out of the floor. I was an inspector, so of course, we didn't pick safety wire out of the floor. We just sat around and wait. The foreman explained to me, Jimmy, because my first name is James. That's what the J stands for, James. James Stanley. Everybody in Pennsylvania calls me Stanley. No one calls me James in Pennsylvania. No one that I knew growing up and all that calls me Stanley. I mean, calls me James. They all call me Stanley. There's only a few people in Hartford that call me Stanley. Okay. Most people call me Stan. Everyone at Pratt Whitney that knew me called me James or Jimmy because that's my first name. And Pratt Whitney put your first name on the badge. Whatever your first name was on your birth certificate, that's where you get the badge, James McCauley. So I became James. All right. So Jimmy, the foreman said, Jimmy, you are paid to be here in the event that you are needed if the production line comes down and they need inspection. So, use the time wisely. Perhaps you should walk to the other end of the shop and get a candy bar and then walk back. But we need you here in the event that the engine gets ready for final inspection. If that is a problem, then you can leave. But rest assured, you will not be coming back. I understand. It makes sense. So I'm going to give me a candy bar. You're paid to be here in the event that there's work. That's why we're paying you time and a half. Stop complaining. All right. Busy work. Young people want to be productive. They don't want busy work. All right? And it's one of the worst things you could do to a young person because they soon learn to value busy work. Then they don't want to do any real work. Okay? Now, let's get real controversial. It's open forum, by the way. It's not really designed for me to sit here and ramble. It's more designed for you to call and talk, but, I'm trying to fill up space. So let's get controversial here. All right? Let's get controversial. The current federal administration that most people in the blue states can't stand, Donald Trump, is trying to bring work back to this country. We are the fourth poorest city of its size in America. And I just, for some reason, believe that if somebody were to reach out to the Trump administration, they just might be compelled somehow, some way, to find some work for people who need work in this city, since you're bringing work back to this country. At the very least, I would exploit the no from the administration to some advantage. But I most certainly would reach out. It doesn't matter to me who the federal administrators are. Those are the people that were elected. How can we work with them to serve the people who we're elected to serve? How can we work with our legislative delegation on the state side? How can we work with our federal legislative delegation, our senators and our congresspeople? Spend your time fighting the administration. Work to get us things that we need. That's what you're elected for. To serve the people. But see, somewhere along the way, people get lost. The people, in an odd sense, become the indigenous folk. And whenever you have takers present, when there's indigenous people, the takers take whatever they can from the indigenous people until there's nothing left to take. Or if the indigenous people are sitting on the things they need, like prime real estate, oil, gold, minerals, they got to find a way to get those indigenous people out. So let's just say you live in a part of town where there's really nice buildings, solid housing stock. I mean, you know, we could redo that housing stock, and we could really leverage opportunities for people who have wealth. This is what's referred to generally as gentrification. Gentrification is not about race; it's about money. Okay. And one could make a good argument for the need to gentrify because, you know, if you've got people who are taking, they're not giving. If you don't have the capacity to sustain yourself and someone else has to sustain you, then you enter into the taker class. So the takers take. Every taker takes until there's nothing left to take. Your car's engine is a taker. Now, in exchange for what it takes, it delivers power so that it gets you somewhere. So it's an even exchange. For every gallon of gas it uses, it delivers something. But if somebody's on public assistance, what are they delivering? Now, one could make the argument that somebody on public assistance is delivering jobs to those who are out in the farm belt, right? So if the Department of Agriculture is operating, they got all this yellow cheese because the cows, the people who manage the cows, they got all that milk, don't know what to do with the overage of milk, so they're making cheese out of it. So they sell it to the government gives it to the people who have a need. So you got these circular dependencies. How do you break those? How do you set people who are trapped in them free? Just it's no different than the hooker down there on Weathersfield Avenue, trapped in a lifestyle she can't get out of. And the pimp trapped in a lifestyle he can't get out of. And the John trapped in a lifestyle he can't get out of. And the dirty cop trapped in a lifestyle he can't get out of. And the exploiting politician who will close down one source of income to enrich friends that own another source of income. See, everybody's trapped in these little circles. They don't necessarily want to be, but it is what it is. It is up to the givers out there to break that up and turn it around. Only the givers can do that. The takers never ever going to do that. One, they enjoy the taking. Two, some can't get out of it. But any system that makes more of a demand on resources than there are resources is doomed for failure. Poverty is choking Hartford to death. And for me, it is not good enough to push the problem of poverty somewhere else. Because if you push it somewhere else, it doesn't go anywhere. It just becomes someone else's problem, and that someone else then becomes a bigger problem. Poverty needs to be attacked and transformed. What kind of programs can be instituted that transform poverty in a city the size of O'Hare International Airport? Now, call me naive, but I refuse to believe that in a city that has two tales, right, two storylines, two narratives in the city. We have some parts of the city, like in the North End, that are a world apart. That's how they refer to in the national press, right? So a whole world apart. We got that section of the city, and then we have sections of the city that do very well. So when we talk about Hartford, and it's 18 square miles? When we talk about Hartford, we're not talking about South Central LA. We're not talking about Watts, right? You're not talking about the west side of Chicago or North Philadelphia or South Philly, right? Or parts of Miami or parts of New York, right? Co-op Village, the population of Co-op Village is larger than Hartford. And you mean to tell me we can't attack poverty and transform it? I think we can. The question is, does Hartford really want to transform and become better than it is? And the justification for the maintenance of poverty, like it is in Hartford, the justification of keeping it that way being that other folk need to eat, is not an acceptable. That's not an acceptable exchange. Because if takers are on the side, or if there's takers on the assistance side, right? The person who's taken the assistance, take, and seemingly not giving back. Well, if cutting them off, if turning that taker into a giver means somebody with a $70,000 a year job don't have a job, then who's the bigger taker? Now we have a system of mutual use. Everybody eating everybody else. Dog eat dog, right? There's no mutual benefit. It's mutual use until who can use the other up first. It's a recipe for disaster. It's not sustainable. All right? The greatest opportunity for prosperity is yet ahead of us. Why? Because we have a large portion of the society or of the population here in Hartford who are not being productive. Those that are being productive at 90 to 100% cannot be more productive. So where are you going to get the new productivity? You're going to get that productivity out of those who are not yet being productive. So all those people that are here in urban America have the opportunity to turn into an engine of productivity that will do nothing but lift everybody up. It's just that you need to have a creative thinking and creative ways, independent thinking, right? It's going to turn that around. People thinking out of the box. I think those people are here in Hartford. They're all over the city. I've talked to them. People got all kinds of ideas. People who have ideas on how to mitigate and transform illiteracy so people know how to read and can read well. Instead of defunding and undercutting those programs, give them the necessary means to be successful. Their success will snowball. Outcome-based, not friend or family-based. How successful is your program? All right. How can we help that program succeed? This program is not going to get any more funding, which means those people are not going to have a job. Can you take those man hours and incorporate them into the program that you have? Can we find a way to manage the program you have and expand it over here so that there's mutual benefit by funding what works? Can you be the administrator that manages a well-run program with the idea and the notion that we want you to work yourself out of business? So what do we do as a means, as we work you out of business? What can we grow into that then becomes sustainable for something else? But see, no one's having those conversations because people aren't interested in helping people. They're interested in profiting select groups of individuals. And I haven't had any sleep. I try not to have these conversations. I find them to be quite taxing. Because theoretical conversations that don't have opportunity to be put into practice is just that, talk. And I'm not one that likes to talk about stuff that ain't gonna get done. That's just a glimpse of the way I process and think about things. That's how I built Hartford Public Access and AccessTV.org. From people telling me that would never work. There's a lot of things that can be done if people are willing to work together and think outside the box. And I'm here to tell you there's a whole lot more people out there willing to work towards substantive transformation for the better than to maintain the status quo of mediocrity, dysfunctionality, and as an economic term, stupidity. Stupidity is when you bring economic loss to yourself and others. That's what I mean when I say stupidity, because there's a whole lot of that going on. And I'm here to tell you, yes, 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 yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. To a factor of 35 divided by 4 multiplied by the square root of 10. Yes. And yes and yes. The current administration and council is deeply involved in and guilty of massive, massive, massive stupidity. Friends, when it's all said and done, the only thing you need to know is this fact, and of course that is that Jesus Christ is Lord of Lords and King of Kings. He alone saves and changes lives. Won't you call on his name today? Allow him to be Lord of your life. If you know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, you have an obligation to go out and tell others about his saving grace. If you don't know him, today is the day for you to make that reach. Call on his name, allow him to be Lord of your life, and watch how different life can be for you. God bless you all. Keep strong in faith. We'll be back Sunday night at 10 o'clock to do it all once again. Have a great weekend, folks.